Dr. Watson is obviously supposed to be the main character in the show. I mean, the title is his name. But really, he is not the character I care about in this show. Hi, I'm Claudia, and medical dramas are starting to get a bit weird. And I am saying this as someone who absolutely loves medical dramas, and if you name a medical drama, I've probably watched it. Like, there's a good 90% chance I've at least watched a season of it. But it seems like gone are the days when a medical drama could just be about the doctors' lives at a hospital in a city. Now there has to be some kind of twist to it. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about two specific, relatively new medical dramas, and those are Doc and Watson. The thing with these two specifically is their concepts just aren't something I've ever seen before in medical dramas, because there are some medical dramas that are exactly the same as, say, Grey's Anatomy. Like, for example, The Pitt. The Pitt is huge. I watched it for the first time a couple of months ago when HBO Max finally arrived in the UK. And yes, it's a bit different in that every episode is like an hour of a shift and you see one shift over the course of a season, but it's still like following the work lives and the personal lives of the doctors and nurses who are on the show. Like, if you take away that aspect, the whole one season is one shift thing, it could be any other medical drama. Like, yes, it's way better and the characters are very well fleshed out and it's amazing, but like, it's identical in base concept to, say, Grey's Anatomy or Chicago Med. But with Doc and Watson, they both take that base concept and kind of put their own twist on it. And in some cases it works, and in some cases it doesn't. First, I'm going to talk about Doc, because this one I feel like the twist works a lot better than it does in Watson, but I'll get into that later. Also, I'm going to try my best not to spoil either of these shows as I'm talking about them, so if you want to go and watch them, you can. I'm just going to explain kind of the base concept and like not go into any of the details. So Doc is about a doctor called Dr. Amy Larson. She is like the top in her field. She's chief in internal medicine at her hospital. She's very well respected. She's also kind of feared by like the residents because she's known to be very strict. But then one day she gets in a car accident and she loses the last like 7 or 8 years of her memory. And because of that, she has to be a resident again and has to like learn all of like the medical advancements that have happened in the time that she's lost in her memory. There's also kind of like side plots where she remembers being married, but actually she's now divorced, and like her daughter's way older than she remembers her being, and it's like a whole thing. Doc actually reminds me a lot of The Resident, so if you like The Resident, you'll probably enjoy Doc. It has a lot of that, yeah, most of it is like medical drama-y stuff, but also there's like an overarching kind of mystery going on. I started watching Doc after I saw a clip. I think it was on TikTok. You know how on TikTok sometimes you get clips from medical dramas? It was that kind of thing. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I actually enjoyed the show. Right now in the UK, as I'm filming this, we're coming towards the end of season 2. The season's already finished. In America, we're just like quite a few weeks behind, as we always are over here. But the like kind of mystery aspect from the first season I thought was well thought out. I quite enjoyed how we got like flashback scenes to like Amy regaining her memories, and like they were flashes and then they became longer flashes. I quite enjoyed that. I was slightly worried what they were going to do in the second season, because you can't just do like her regaining her memories for like an undetermined amount of seasons. It's gonna like get dull at some point. But I did enjoy kind of the new kind of storylines they brought in with the second season. Like with the second season, there was this new mystery to solve, and I quite enjoyed that. It reminded me a lot of The Resident, and I know I've already said that, but in The Resident you had like a mystery for a season, they'd like solve it at the end, everyone would be happy, and then within the first few episodes of the next season, there'd be some new mystery to solve. And it's quite similar. I also like enjoy all the main characters enough to like the show. Like Amy Larson, especially in her flashbacks to like the time she's missing, she's not supposed to be likable. And I like a show that's not afraid to make you hate a main character. I do think they're trying to make her seem like she's completely reformed now that she's lost her memory. She's like fine again, she's not going to shout at anyone. I would like to see them delve more into like her personality before and kind of merging that with her new personality, but you know, we'll see how it goes. Doc has been renewed for season 3, which I'm not shocked by. It seems to be relatively popular. I've seen people talk about it online, so like that's usually how I gauge stuff. And when I just googled it, they said they're bringing in a new main character for season 3. I didn't read any further because I didn't want to be spoiled on anything, but I'm not surprised that they're bringing in more main characters. Like they added a couple new main characters for season 2. I'm not shocked that they're adding another one for season 3, you know. They're kind of rounding out their ensemble cast as they go. But yeah, Doc has good medical scenes. I enjoy the storylines. The mystery aspect is fun and not something I'm getting from another show now that The Resident's over. And the twist actually makes sense. You know, her losing her memory and having to redo her residency is something that would actually happen if that happened in real life, I assume. Yeah, it's a little bit far-fetched, but it's a TV show. It's always going to be a little far-fetched. But it's still, like, within the context of the show, everything that happened makes sense. So yeah, I'm enjoying Doc. If you like The Resident, then you'll probably also kind of enjoy Doc, and I do recommend starting it if you're looking for a new medical drama. And if you're in the UK and you want to watch it, it's available on Sky. Now we have to move on to Watson. Now Watson, as the name suggests, is another modern day retelling of Sherlock Holmes. But this one is a medical drama. Because that makes sense. I mean, it kind of makes sense because even in the original stories and like all of the series, Watson is a doctor. He's Dr. Watson. But the basic plot of Watson is that Dr. Watson took like a leave of absence from his hospital to like go and solve crimes with Sherlock Holmes for some reason. Then Sherlock dies, he's killed by Moriarty, and Watson is gravely injured. But in Sherlock's will, he leaves a bunch of money to Watson so he can start his own clinic at the hospital he used to work at. And this fictional hospital called U-Hop is in Pittsburgh, which I feel like was their first mistake because they were directly competing with the Pit with that one, but anyway. If you can't tell by that rundown I just gave you, the actual Sherlock Holmes retelling aspect is kind of minor. Most of the show is a medical drama. Like, the actual Sherlock Holmes aspect is not the main plot point somehow. Like, you would think for a Sherlock Holmes retelling, the actual Sherlock Holmes plots would be the main thing, but it's not in Watson for some reason. When I started watching it, I thought there'd be more Sherlock Holmes aspects when there's really not, so just take that as you will. But this show, according to Wikipedia, is made by the same creative team who made Elementary. Now, I have not watched Elementary, but I have heard of it. It is the most recent Sherlock retelling, I believe. It was a TV show. From what I know, it was decently successful. People enjoyed it. And while I've said that is the most recent Sherlock retelling, probably the most famous Sherlock Holmes retelling is the BBC show Sherlock. If you were on the internet at all between like 2010 and 2016, you have heard of Sherlock. It was massive on Tumblr, in like fanfiction spaces. If you read fanfiction, you have probably heard of Sherlock. I myself have watched Sherlock. I watched it after it finished though, because I was a bit young to be watching it in 2010 when it started. I was 5. But it famously starred Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes and Martin Freeman as Dr. Watson. It won so many awards. It won Emmys and Golden Globes and BAFTAs, and it was just massive. It's one of very few like BBC shows, British made shows, that has a worldwide fan base. Sherlock was massive. It was loved by everyone until we got to the ending, which was questionable, but apart from that, everyone seemed to love it. It was one of the biggest British shows of kind of the early to mid 2010s, which means any further Sherlock retelling has a lot to live up to. Elementary, from what I know about it, was more of a different take on the Sherlock retelling, which I think is why it was kind of popular. It didn't reach Sherlock levels, but it was decently popular. But then Watson showed up, and it just misses the mark entirely. When I first started watching it, I thought it would be, yes, it's called Watson, yes, it follows Dr. Watson and it's a medical drama, but I thought their medical cases would be based on actual, like, Sherlock Holmes stories, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, a lot of the cases from the original Sherlock books, like, aren't medical drama type storylines, but I thought they would take them and kind of use that as inspiration, kind of adapt them, and that's what we would get. But it's not. At its core, Watson is a show where a doctor and a group of fellows try and solve medical mysteries. And that should sound a little bit familiar. And that is because Watson is very, very similar to another show called House. House was a medical drama that started in 2004 and ended in 2012. It ran for 8 seasons. It was massively popular. I've watched it myself. It's a great show. It mainly follows Dr. Gregory House, who's very cynical, sarcastic, mean. He's also a drug addict, and he like solves medical mysteries. That's kind of his whole thing. And he has this group of fellows that help him. It's kind of a rotating cast as you go through the seasons, but there's always like a group of at least 3 fellows who are there helping him diagnose people. And Watson is essentially the same show, except it's got a modern day Sherlock Holmes retelling shoehorned in there. Yes, there are differences, like Watson and House, for example, are both very different characters. Watson is not as mean or as cynical, but he is a little bit like focused on the medicine. There's like a whole plot point in season 1 where like the fellows he hires is all like a bit of a game to him. But if you reduce those 2 shows to their absolute core premise, they are the same show, except House does it so much better. The thing with Watson is, you would think for a modern day Sherlock Holmes retelling, all of the characters would be based on original Sherlock Holmes characters, whereas in reality, there's like 3. You have Dr. Watson himself, you have Detective Lestrade, who pops up like a few times throughout the show. Also, she's a woman in this one, which fairs, but she only pops up in like a few episodes. I'm not even sure if she pops up until season 2. I think she's in season 1, I think. And then the third character from the original books is Mary Morstan. Now, if you know anything about Sherlock Holmes, you all know that Mary is Dr. Watson's kind of love interest. But in Watson the show, the 2 of them are already married, but they're separated and in the process of getting a divorce. Mary Morstan is also a doctor in this one. She's a neurosurgeon, I think. and she's like head of the hospital. Imagine like chief of surgery vibes if you've seen Grey's Anatomy. So she's like Watson's boss, but they're also married, but they're also getting a divorce. It's kind of awkward. Actually, there's 4 characters they take from the original Sherlock books, because there's also Shinwell Johnson. From my googling, Shinwell Johnson is a very minor character in the original Sherlock Holmes books, but in the show he is like said to be an old friend of Sherlock's who helped Sherlock and Watson when they were like solving crimes in the UK for whatever reason. It's like heavily suggested that he used to be a criminal, but he's kind of reformed now and he like helps out at the clinic. The clinic that they work at is also called the Holmes Clinic, by the way, because you know Sherlock Holmes funded it in his will or whatever. Dr. Watson is obviously supposed to be the main character in the show. I mean, the title is his name. But really, he is not the character I care about in this show. The characters I care about and I think are personally more interesting are the 4 fellows. First, you have Dr. Sasha Lubbock, who, if you've watched House, she reminds me a lot of Dr. Cameron. Firstly, they're both immunologists. I think Dr. Cameron's an immunologist from my memory. But Dr. Lubbock, she was born in China, but then adopted and raised in Texas, and she's probably my favourite of the fellows. She has a very glass half full attitude about her, but when like it comes down to it, she can be absolutely cutthroat, and I kind of love her. And then you have Dr. Stevens Croft and Dr. Adam Croft. They are identical twins. They are played by the same actor, and if you recognise that actor, that will be because he also plays Joey in the early seasons of Chicago Med. They're even though they're identical twins, they're very different. Stevens is much more introverted, Adam is much more extroverted, and at the start of the show they have a strange relationship kind of. Basically, Adam is dating Stevens's ex-fiance, so they like kind of have a bit of a questionable relationship going on. And then our 4th fellow, and probably like the most plot heavy fellow, like she has the brunt of the storylines, is Dr. Ingrid Derian. She is a neurologist and she has a very questionable past. Her demeanor, she's very to the point. Her and Dr. Lubbock don't tend to get along until they like kind of start to become friends. I don't want to spoil anything, but she has probably the most involved storyline out of all the fellows. Like, yeah, the others have storylines. Like Adam is dating Stevens' ex, and Sasha, she's like been dating this guy. I think they've been engaged for like years and they just haven't gotten married. Like they keep pushing off the wedding and it's kind of questionable as like, should she really be dating him? But I don't want to spoil anything. But the fellows I think are probably more interesting than Dr. Watson himself. Like a lot of the first season is just he's getting a divorce from Mary. Like that's all of his personal life stuff. And then there's the Sherlock stuff. As I said before, the main like premise of the show is Sherlock is dead and he gives the money in his will to Watson to start the clinic. But when Moriarty killed Sherlock, Watson was also there. He was like in an accident, he hit his head, and there's some like lingering effects going on from that, and I'm not going to say any more, but there's some stuff going on in that first season. But Watson, I think at the start, had a lot going for it. It had like the whole premise of being a modern day Sherlock retelling, which already gets you some fans through the door without even like watching the first episodes of the show. It's also a medical drama, which people love. There's a big medical drama fan base out there, but I think it tried so hard to be a medical drama that the Sherlock stuff kind of fell to the wayside, and then when it is there, it feels like it's kind of been shoved in. It doesn't really fit. But with the medical drama stuff, if you've watched House, you very quickly realise that Watson is just House but again, and it feels kind of like we've done this before, you know? And I think that's a real shame considering the 2 big cast members who play Watson and Dr. Mary Morstan are like kind of a big deal, at least in the medical drama world. Like the actor who plays John Watson, I know from a couple of other shows. If you've watched The Resident, which I know I mentioned earlier in relation to Doc, but he was on The Resident in the later seasons as Dr. Kane, who was like kind of evil, and then he had surgery, and then he ended up in like long-term care from that surgery, if you remember that. But he was also the main lead on a show called Rosewood. Now if you haven't watched Rosewood, you should definitely go watch it. It's not like a long show, I think it was only 2 seasons, but it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of similar to Bones in that you've got this Dr. Rosewood who's like a private pathologist and he works with the police to like solve crimes, I think in Miami. But the main detective is played by the same actress who played Andy Herrera on Station 19, which I always find very funny because there's that new show, RJ Decker, where she's a detective again, and also you've got Nick from Grey's Anatomy playing the other guy, and I'm like, what's going on there? I haven't watched that yet. I will watch that at some point. So like he's relatively well known in the medical drama world, and so is the actress who plays Dr. Mary Morstan. She's not that well known in medical dramas, but if you watch any procedural, you might recognise her. And that's because she's in Criminal Minds in the later seasons as Derek Morgan's love interest Savannah, and then she's in SWAT as Hondo's love interest Nichelle, and yes, that means she played the love interest with the same actor twice in 2 different shows, don't even ask. But like I know her face, like I know her from those shows, and I know the actor who plays Dr. Watson from the shows he's been on, and I was like, okay, I know these guys, they're good actors, Like, this show's probably going to be good. And then it just isn't. Season 2 is still airing in the UK, so I had to Google to see if it's been renewed for season 3, and that's when I found out Watson has been cancelled after 2 seasons, which honestly is not much of a shock. There is nowhere left to go with it at this point, to be honest. They've done all they can. I think the creative team really tried to do a new kind of modern day Sherlock retelling where it's more of a medical drama and it focuses on Watson, but it just misses the mark. It's not enough of a Sherlock retelling, and it's too similar to House on the medical side, and it just doesn't live up to what I thought it was going to be. Like, don't get me wrong, if you love House and would like to watch a show that's kind of similar to House, then I would 100% recommend Watson for the 2 seasons we've got. But I think that's the only reason I would recommend this show. It's so similar to House in that, like, even in each episode, you have all the fellows sitting in a conference room and Watson writing on a whiteboard all their different, like, diagnoses that they're going through. That is so similar to House. But if you want a show that solves medical mysteries, go for House. Watson is not worth it. It was a valiant effort by the creative team to try and make a medical drama based off of Sherlock, but it just doesn't work. Sorry. So if you've watched this video and you think, oh, which one of these 2 shows should I actually watch? Go for Doc. Doc is so much better than Watson, but Watson is so weird that maybe you might like it if you like that kind of thing. And if the team behind Watson ever see this, I'm sorry for making fun of your show. Sorry, it's just not like the best thing I've ever watched in the world. I'm sorry. I think with Watson, it had the potential to be so great, and all of it is just a bit of a letdown. And that's kind of probably why it's been cancelled after 2 seasons. But if you've enjoyed this video, I have to do the awkward and kind of cringy YouTuber thing and ask you to like the video or maybe even subscribe. I post new videos all about TV shows and fan fiction, so if you like that kind of thing, you might enjoy what I do here. There'll also be links in the description to my Area 3 profile if you want to read my fanfics, but also to my Twitter account and my TikTok account. And I post new fanfiction related TikToks literally every single day, so if you like that kind of thing, you might want to follow me over there. So yeah, I've been Claudia, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll hopefully see you all soon. Bye!